We appreciate this opportunity because there has been an awful lot of interest and speculation around the country, mainly coming out of Washington, about the future use of coal to generate electricity. And that drills down right here to the local level with our Waukegan power generating station on the lakefront and the future of it. Been a very intense national debate that we respect and that we've been very much a part of in Washington as well as in Springfield. And so for openers, just to clarify or make clear what our position is as a company about the future of our energy supply, it's balance and transition. Balance means, we're a believer that to have a reliable, affordable supply of electricity for the long term, we need coal generation, we need wind, we need gas, we need solar, we need nuclear, we need energy efficiency and conservation, the so-called all-of-the-above strategy, and we do think coal continues to have a role there, although it is a role that's in transition now to where we are seeing across the country and here in Illinois, less reliance on coal, more renewable energy, and we think that our company nationally as well as here in Illinois has modeled that transition and that behavior, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. Before I talk specifically about Waukegan Station, I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes talking about, at a parent company and corporate level. When I was introduced, mentioned that I have a dual title. I have one title here at Midwest Generation, which is the owner and operator of the Waukegan power plant. But then also I'm an officer of Edison Mission Energy, which is headquartered out in Santa Ana, California, Southern California, and is a national energy player, Illinois being our single biggest presence around the country, but we actually have operations in 12 states. And you may be aware that since last December, Edison Mission Energy as well as Midwest Generation have been engaged in a Chapter 11 financial reorganization and restructuring. And one thing I would emphasize is throughout that bankruptcy process, it has been business as usual to a large degree here at Waukegan Station. Obviously, there's nothing quite business as usual about being in Chapter 11, but we have operated normally up there on the lakefront. And amazingly, and I think is a real tribute to the 120 men and women who worked there with Mark over the past year, that plant has never run more safely, it's never run more reliably, and it's never been cleaner in terms of its air emissions profile. And again, I think that's a tremendous tribute to the focus and dedication and pride that the people take in their operations, that while they deal with a time of uncertainty about the long run, they've stayed focused on the task at hand and done a great job. Now, on October 18th, just a few weeks ago, you may be aware that we did announce a potential path for our emergence from Chapter 11, and that would be a proposed sale of our company, of Edison Mission Energy, Midwest Generation, all of our companies and assets around the country, to NRG Energy. That's capital N, capital R, capital G. NRG Energy, which is headquartered in Princeton, New Jersey, and is a major, significant player in the electric production sector around the country. They know coal, they know gas, they know renewable energy. They have a big presence in the Northeast, Texas, California, smaller presence in the Midwest, which obviously would grow significantly if our sale goes through with them. We have until, under our proposed agreement that was filed with the bankruptcy court, we have until December 6th for our company to continue to solicit potentially better transactions and offers from other parties. Regardless whether we have an alternative proposal that we prefer by that time or wind up proceeding as planned with the NRG transaction, the hope would be that we could close the sale before the end of the first quarter of 2014. It will be pending regulatory approvals, of course. The main one is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in Washington, which oversees our industry. Excuse me. And then we also will need the approval of the bankruptcy court here in the Northern District of Illinois. But it's very much on track and moving forward since that announcement just a few weeks ago. And clearly, I can't stand here today and speculate about NRG's future operations of all of our assets or speak for them. But I did want to acknowledge that that's in the works, and that this is a major company with a great reputation and experience and expertise in our industry. and that potential transition over to new ownership and operation under their leadership is now pending and may start to fall into place here very soon. So let's talk about the Waukegan station in particular, which I'm going to assume everybody's familiar with. The stacks out there on the lakefront at the end of Greenwood. Edison Mission Energy acquired a fleet of coal-fired power plants from Commonwealth Edison in 1999, including Waukegan. That's when we established the subsidiary here in Illinois that I am a part of that we call Midwest Generation. So we've been operating that plant now for 14 years. As I said before, there's 120 employees there today. The plant pays nearly $1 million in local property taxes from its operations and purchases about $4 million in goods and services from regional suppliers and providers of the various things that are needed at the plant. We pride ourselves, this is one reason why I really am pleased to have Susan with us today, because we pride ourselves on community involvement, volunteerism, sponsorships. I hope you see evidence of that around the community. I know Mark, Susan, and many of the men and women at the plant are passionately dedicated to that and spend a lot of time giving back to the community. We hope that people understand and would agree that that's a core value of ours wherever we operate, and we've had a very strong focus in that area in Waukegan since we got here in '99, and we've worked hard to even enhance that in the past couple of years. Physically, the plant produces 689 megawatts of electricity. That roughly would meet the average needs of about 700,000 homes. Importantly, we're a wholesale provider. We're not a utility. We don't send you the bill, as you know, to your home. That comes from ComEd or whoever your retail provider is. We're the wholesale provider. We sell our power from Waukegan and our other plants into a 13-state grid that's managed by an organization called PJM Interconnection. PJM stands for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and they manage this 13-state power grid. So what we do in a simplified form is we tell PJM on a daily basis, here's the power that we have available today to serve that grid. Here's the cost, that the price that we're offering it for. PJM then looks at utilities like ComEd and others around this 13-state region, matches up supply and demand, tells us what they need from us on a given day, and then we generate the power. But regardless of that financial transaction that goes on with this 13-state organization, the electrons coming out of that plant are coming right down the street, out of our transmission yard, or out of the ComEd transmission yard, to the homes and businesses here in Waukegan and the surrounding area. And I did want to emphasize that because I know sometimes there is a point of confusion where we sometimes see people say, well, that plant doesn't provide electricity locally or to Illinois or to ComEd. And that they say that because of the 13-state grid we're in. But trust me, the electrons, the physical power coming out of that plant are supporting the electric supply in this area. One of the things the main thing that we wanted to talk about today was our track record with environmental responsibility at that station. So I'll spend a few minutes on that and then turn it over here for the rest of the program. Back in 1999, 2000, when we first bought the plant, we started making immediate investments in new pollution controls for a pollutant called nitrogen oxide, which can contribute to ozone. Almost immediately, we changed up our coal supply to go to a lower sulfur content coal that we bring in here. Sulfur dioxide is an emissions that can contribute to acid rain, also contributes to soot, fine particles, so it was important to us to knock that down immediately. In 2006, we entered into a long-term comprehensive agreement with the state of Illinois for further emission reductions that go all the way out through 2018. The state wanted to see immediate reductions in emissions in Illinois of mercury. We wanted to see a long roadmap, blueprint for what we would have to do on a number of fronts over a period of several years. So we came together in a negotiation that in 2006 and rules were adopted in 2007 that have been our blueprint. As a result of that, at the end of 2007, we retired one of the 3 individual generating units at our station here in Waukegan. It was the smallest, the least efficient. When I talk about a transition away from less coal, more renewable, more gas, that's what I'm talking about, is making decisions site by site on I can justify continuing to invest in certain units, and there are others that I can't justify that investment in, and so you kind of weed those out and rationalize your fleet. We've been doing that across our coal-fired fleet here in Illinois, and Waukegan was the first place that we did that by retiring the one smaller unit and keeping the two larger ones. In 2008, we became one of the first companies in the country to install emission controls for mercury, and Waukegan was the very first plant that we did it in. That was, in no small part due to the strong focus on, concerns about mercury in the lake. It was a real hot button with the Illinois EPA that we tried to be responsive to. So Illinois really, or Waukegan really could step up back in 2008 and take a bow, being front and center for one of the first power plants in the country to have controls for mercury emissions. In 2011, we had more regulations put on us by the state for emissions of nitrogen oxide, ozone that I talked about. Because of the work that we had done 10 years ago, we were already in good shape with that here at Waukegan. And now we're in the next and kind of final stage of work here at Waukegan, another big round of reductions in the sulfur dioxide emissions that I talked about that are due over the next few years. We started doing very preliminary construction work and design and engineering for those additional retrofits at the plant last year and into this year. And under our state regulations, by the end of 2014, one of the generating units of the two generating units has to be fully retrofitted, and by May 31st of 2015, the other one does. So we're on a time frame now and deadlines under state regulations to keep pushing forward with retrofitting with new environmental controls at the Waukegan plant. Now, in fairness, or full disclosure, it's tough to make final decisions about making those investments. It's no different at Waukegan than it is any place else in the country. Every company, whether it's us, NRG, others that own coal-fired generation, are watching the marketplace, looking at the impact of regulations, and having to make case-by-case decisions on investments. So when we look out to the long term of Waukegan, our employees have been well aware that there's a certain amount of uncertainty that we have to deal with. The bottom line, though, and the most important thing is we've continued to invest. We've continued to keep that station on track to comply with these new round of regulations and deadlines that are coming up on us at this point in time, and continuing to do the work that's required to be done by next year on the first of those two units. So to close, let me, I'll summarize the results and a quick look ahead. So what we've accomplished since we got here in 1999, the emissions of mercury from that plant have been reduced already by 73%. By the time we get done with the round of work that's scheduled to be completed in 2014, that's going to be greater than 90%. That's leading the country. That's one of the best results you'll see anywhere in the nation on reducing mercury. Nitrogen oxide that I talked about, ozone, reduced those emissions 70%. Sulfur dioxide, acid rain, particulates, already reduced those emissions by 60% here. That'll go up to about 85% with the completion of the projects that I talked about that are underway. And then importantly, climate change is a big issue, emissions of carbon dioxide. Because of the retirement of the one unit there and the other efficiencies that we've been able to continue to mine out of this plant, since 1999, we've reduced emissions of carbon dioxide by 28% from Waukegan Station. And as context for that, when the President announced earlier this year his big climate change initiative, he said his national goal is that between 2005 and 2020, he wants national carbon emissions reduced 17%. Well, in that same time frame, we're almost double that with what we've done here in Waukegan. So I think that's we're front and center there and consistent with the national goals that the President's laid out. So to close, we are still investing in the plant and still planning for future operations. Our focus, as always, under Mark's leadership, is on safe, reliable operations. And as I said, the team up there has just been up here has been hitting it out of the park in the last year and earlier with that. We have big decisions, whether it's us or a new owner, that lie ahead as you evaluate the market and regulations on ongoing retrofits or shutdown of certain units. But for now, we've kept investing in Waukegan and feel good about the performance and the work there. As I said at the outset, we may be headed to a transition here in the relatively near term to a new corporate owner. That remains to play out, and as I said, I can't comment or speculate about their intentions or plans at this point. Would be inappropriate, other than to tell you that they are a major again player in our industry with great experience, great expertise. If they arrive here, they're going to know what they're doing. What I can assure you for today is that as we enter into that transition and continue to comply with environmental regulations, Mark and his team here are going to get full support from our corporate offices to make sure that we keep things safe and reliable and environmentally responsible here at the Waukegan plant.